The galactic High Council chamber shimmered with light from 6 suns refracted through crystal walls, a spectacle designed to impress, distract, and intimidate. Princess Kaelari of the Zyreel Dominion stood tall and regal in the center, violet skin glowing softly beneath her ceremonial veil, flanked by her palace guards. She wasn't intimidated, she was bored. This entire peace summit was political theater. She had played her part, until he entered. The human. Sergeant Darius Kane stepped through the threshold in polished black armor. No cape, no decoration, no flourish. His presence didn't need it. The chamber hushed, not out of reverence, but discomfort. Every non-human could feel something primal coil inside them when he moved. There was no sound to his footsteps, no expression on his face. Only those eyes. Dark, focused, deep. They locked onto Kaelari immediately. She narrowed her gaze. Why is he staring at me like that? She tilted her chin up. Sergeant Kane, one of the council diplomats, announced. Earth's representative and personal security detail for the Zyreel Empire. Kaelari bristled. Security detail? She turned to her advisor with a low hiss in their shared tongue. He looks like a weapon, not a guardian. That's the point, the advisor replied. Earth sent their sharpest blade. Kaelari stepped forward, dismissing her guards with a flick of her fingers. The human soldier waited, unmoving. When she stopped before him, his eyes didn't flinch. You, she said coolly, will refer to me as High Grace, Princess, or Your Eminence. Yes, Your Eminence, he replied, voice low and steady. She circled him slowly, noting the scars visible even beneath the thin collar of his armor. He bore no crown, no sigil, only that stare. Why are you looking at me so deeply, human? She asked, her tone almost mocking. Because your guards are trained to protect your body, he said without hesitation. I'm here to protect your life. The words landed harder than expected. She paused, slightly unsettled by the rawness in his voice. There was no flirtation, no subservience, just purpose. Do you stare at everything like that? She asked. No, he said. Only the things I need to understand. Her heartbeat spiked. Annoyance, she told herself. Later that evening, Kaelari attended a ceremonial banquet at the Central Dome on Zyralis Prime, surrounded by representatives from 39 species. Each made polite gestures, exchanged shallow pleasantries. The humans were seated separately, mostly military. Kane, by her request, or perhaps to test him, stood close to her table, silent and watchful. She made a point to ignore him, until the explosion. It was a flash of light, a deafening crack, and the scream of splintered glass. Poison gas vented from hidden orbs above. Panic surged. Before Kaelari could react, Kane was moving, faster than she thought possible. He shoved her under the banquet table, covered her with his armored frame, and drew a sleek weapon from his side. 3 attackers emerged in the chaos. They never made it 10 steps. Kane shot the first between the eyes, dodged a blast from the second, then threw his weapon and shattered the third skull with a flying knee. The entire sequence took under 10 seconds. When it was over, Kane stood before her, breathing hard, suit scorched but intact. Blood dripped from his knuckles. Kaelari emerged, shaken but unharmed. You're efficient, she managed. I told you, he said, scanning the perimeter. I don't wait for permission to protect what matters. What matters? She didn't ask aloud. The council was furious at the breach, embarrassed beyond measure. Assurances were made. Security reshuffled. Yet amid all the noise, Kaelari kept looking back to him. He hadn't flinched when the bombs went off. He hadn't hesitated to kill. And when he looked at her afterward, there was no triumph in his eyes. Only the question, are you safe? For the first time in years, she didn't feel like a political tool. She felt seen. The shuttle hummed quietly as it slipped through the stars toward the next neutral system. Princess Kaelari sat by the wide viewport, eyes fixed on the passing galaxies, though her mind was far from serene. Darius Kane sat across from her, silent, motionless, armored, and utterly unreadable. The council had insisted she continue her diplomatic tour. The attack, they claimed, was an isolated incident. But the Zyreel advisors were spooked, and Earth's presence had been strongly recommended as a continued precaution. So here they were, a princess and her human bodyguard, alone in a sleek diplomatic vessel, with only minimal crew and a lot of silence. Kaelari hated silence. It gave her thoughts too much room. "I expected a brute," she said, not looking at him. "You don't speak much." "I wasn't chosen to speak," Darius replied. She turned to face him. "Why were you chosen?" He met her eyes evenly. "Because I survive." Her ridged brow furrowed. "That's it. It's enough." Kaelari stared at him, frustration building. He wasn't just cold, he was closed. A locked vault. And yet, in that vault was something unshakable. Something she couldn't stop thinking about. "Your eyes," she said suddenly, before she could stop herself. "They're steady, like a mountain." It's unnerving. A faint smile tugged at his lips. Barely there. Most people flinch when they look too long. "I don't flinch," she snapped. "I noticed." They fell back into silence. The stars drifted past. Finally, she rose and crossed to him, her ceremonial robes shifting like flowing glass. She folded her arms and studied him closely, searching for weakness, or at least a crack in the armor. "Tell me, human," she said, "what made you like this?" He didn't answer immediately. Then, "Earth doesn't raise its protectors gently. You either survive the fire or become ash." Kaelari sat across from him again. "And you? Were you burned?" "Every day," he said. "Still here." For once, she didn't have a response. She leaned back, arms loose at her sides. "In my palace, they taught us to pretend. Smile when we're bleeding. Apologize for existing, even among our own kind." "That's not unique to your kind," Darius said. "Some of us are just better at pretending." She stared at him, searching for sarcasm. But there was none. Only truth. Then the ship bucked. Not violently, but enough to throw Kaelari against the seat. The hum changed pitch. Lights flickered. "What was that?" she asked. Darius was already up. "Hand is calm, bridge, report." "Gravitational anomaly," came the pilot's voice. "Small moon. Automated course correction engaged. No threats detected." Kaelari stood and steadied herself. "I want to see it." Darius hesitated. "It may not be safe." "I didn't ask." A beat of silence. "Then I'll go with you," he said. The moon was silent and silver, dust rising in slow motion under Kaelari's boots. Its low gravity made every step feel like a dream. They walked in silence, Darius close but respectful of distance. As she climbed a low ridge, her foot slipped on loose shale. She gasped. Then his hand caught her waist, steadying her before she fell. Kaelari froze. His arm was firm, strong, but not rough. His touch was precise, not possessive. Her breath caught in her throat. She turned to find him staring at her again. Not with lust, not with command, with concern. Her voice was quieter this time. "Why do you keep looking at me like that?" He didn't let go. "Because when I look away, I can't guarantee you'll be safe." "I've been surrounded by guards my whole life," she whispered. "None of them ever looked at me like that." "Then they weren't really protecting you." Their faces were close. Too close. She felt warmth where there shouldn't be any. Heard the rhythm of his breath. She pulled away first, clearing her throat. "Let's return. This moon holds no secrets worth discovering." They walked back in silence again, but it wasn't empty this time. Something had changed, something neither of them spoke of, but both felt like gravity pulling them closer. That night, Kaelari sat alone in her quarters, staring out at the stars again. And this time, she wasn't thinking about politics or treaties or her role as a symbol. She was thinking about a pair of human eyes that refused to look away. The stars were wrong. That was the first thought that crossed Darius Kane's mind as he studied the navigation screen. Their vessel wasn't where it was supposed to be. The neutral corridor they'd been traversing was clear on the charts. Uncharted asteroid fields and dormant pirate zones avoided by all major factions. But someone had lured them off course, and they were no longer alone. 3 ships, small, fast, and unmarked, emerged from the void, angling toward the diplomatic cruiser like vultures sensing blood. Kaelari entered the cockpit just as Darius was strapping into the co-pilot's seat. "What is it?" she asked. "Ambush," he said flatly. "How?" "They spoofed our navigation drift and knocked us 2 degrees off axis. Just enough to isolate us." Pirates, or worse. The pilot's voice crackled in the cabin. I've initiated evasive maneuvers, but they're jamming our comms. Hostiles locking on in 10 seconds. Kaelari gripped the railing. This is a peace mission. No one told them that, Darius muttered, rising to his feet. Stay here. She grabbed his arm. You're not going alone. He looked at her. My job is to die before you do. That hasn't changed. The ship shuddered violently as the first volley struck their shields. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Darius pushed her gently, but firmly into the emergency lift. You're not dying today, she snapped. No, he said. Neither of us are. The pirates breached the docking bay within minutes. Darius waited for them. Helmet on, rifle drawn, body language calm, and coiled like a beast ready to strike. The first intruder was vaporized mid-stride. The second ducked for cover, only to find a blade buried in his side as Darius closed the gap with terrifying speed. Kaelari watched from the shadows, refusing to cower. She gripped a shock baton, half ceremonial, half functional, but she had no illusions about how useless it was compared to what Kane was doing. There were 5 of them, then there were none. But Darius didn't come out unscathed. A blast clipped his side. He staggered, blood darkening the seam beneath his ribs. Still, he stood between her and the danger like a wall of unbroken steel. She rushed to him. You're hurt. I've had worse, he said, trying to stay upright. We need to get out of here, she insisted. If they sent scouts, more will come. No shuttle. Controls are locked. His voice was slowing. We're not flying anywhere, unless we make a move. Kaelari bit her lip. Then we take their ship. He blinked at her, surprised. I've read enough tactical logs to know it's our only chance. Can you move? Darius gave a dry chuckle. You give the order, I'll make it happen. They reached the pirate vessel in a desperate push. Kaelari supported him as best she could. He bypassed their biometric lock using a small implant in his glove, and the doors hissed open. Inside, the ship was chaos, bloodied, half-looted, reeking of bad synth meat and worse morals. Darius collapsed into the pilot's seat and started rerouting controls. Kaelari took the co-pilot side and began assisting, patching sensor feeds, stabilizing power flow. She had no formal training, but she had palace tutoring and sharp instincts. He glanced at her as she worked. You're not just a figurehead, are you? No, she said. And you're not just a blunt weapon. Their eyes met. The silence was loud. Then the remaining 2 enemy ships turned, realizing something was wrong. They were coming back. Kaelari swallowed hard. Can we outrun them? No, Darius said. But we can outthink them. He activated the ship's cloaking field, then powered down everything but life support. The enemy vessels swept past them, assuming the pirate ship had been abandoned or destroyed. Only once the danger had passed did Kaelari allow herself to breathe. She turned to Darius, who was slumped in the seat, bleeding but still conscious. Why? She whispered. Why risk everything for me? He looked at her, his gaze softer now, tired but unwavering. Because I choose you, he said. Not your title, not your mission. You. Her breath caught. Without thinking, without strategy, Kaelari leaned in and pressed her lips gently to his. It wasn't ceremony. It wasn't manipulation. It was real. When she pulled back, her voice was soft. You may be the most dangerous creature I've ever met. And you, Darius whispered, may be the only one who's ever looked at me without fear. They drifted silently in space, 2 souls born on opposite ends of war, now locked in something far more fragile and far more dangerous. The pirate vessel emerged from hyperspace scarred, battered, but alive. Kaelari stood by the viewport, watching the glittering domes of the Zyreel capital rise into view. Home. The sky-hung gardens, the crystal towers, the ornate docking spires that once symbolized everything sacred to her people. But she didn't feel relief. Not yet. Behind her, Darius Kane lay still in the med pod. His armor had been peeled away, revealing layers of bruises, cauterized wounds, and plasma burns. The auto-surgeons buzzed and whispered, sealing flesh and knitting broken bone. He had collapsed shortly after powering down the pirate ship systems. Only her urgent programming of a vessel's return course had kept them from drifting into oblivion. She hadn't left his side for 2 days. "Princess Kaelari," came the voice of her steward over the comm, "the council demands your immediate presence for debriefing." She tapped the receiver, but didn't respond. Her gaze stayed on him, the man who had no reason to fight for her. No promise of reward, no obligation, only the strange, silent devotion in his eyes. When the ship docked, medics swarmed in. Royal guards surrounded her instantly, but she waved them off. "I walk alone," she said. They hesitated but obeyed. The council hall was filled with tension. The high chairwoman stood rigidly, robes rustling as she turned to address Kaelari. "You were attacked, taken off-grid. Your escort was a human, and your return ship bore the signature of pirates. This entire incident is a disaster." Kaelari stepped forward calmly. "It's a miracle." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The chairwoman raised a brow. "A miracle? I survived because of that human," Kaelari said clearly. "He didn't run. He didn't hesitate. He didn't ask if I was worth saving. This is not about sentiment." "No," Kaelari interrupted. "This is about reality. While your advisors debate treaties and posture over influence, he bled to keep me alive." An older counselor scoffed. "And now you expect us to elevate a human soldier to the level of our royal protectorate?" Kaelari didn't flinch. "No, I don't expect it." She looked up, her eyes glowing with intensity. "I command it." Silence fell like a blade. Later, she stood in the royal recovery suite, beside Darius as he regained consciousness. His eyes opened slowly. "You're back," he murmured. "I never left," she said softly. He tried to sit up, but she pressed a hand to his chest. "No sudden moves. Your wounds are healing." He gave a faint smile. "You gave the council hell, didn't you? I made them listen." He chuckled. "That's harder than killing pirates." She nodded, but her smile faded. "I thought I'd be relieved to come home, but I feel like the girl who left died out there." Darius met her gaze. "Good." She needed to. She blinked. "You don't mourn who I was? I see who you are now." She sat beside him. "And who's that?" "A leader who doesn't hide behind protocol. A woman who can survive in a war zone. Someone who understands the difference between power and strength." Their hands touched gently. His fingers were rough, hers elegant and cool. But they fit. He looked at her deeply again, the same way he had the first time they met. "Why are you looking at me like that again?" she whispered. He smiled. "Because I'm not looking at a princess anymore." She leaned in, forehead resting against his. "And I'm not looking at a weapon." For a moment, neither spoke. And then, just above a whisper, she said, "Stay." He didn't ask where or why. He just answered, "Always." Epilogue. The peace accords that followed were the first real ones in Zyreel, Terran history. A joint guard was created. Earth's elite and Zyreel's royal protectors trained together. Darius was the first human to serve not just as bodyguard, but as honor-bound, a sacred title once reserved only for those born into the royal line. Whispers followed them, of course. But when Kaelari walked into the next council summit, hand in hand with Darius Kane, the whispers turned to silence. And the galaxy had seen war. It had seen politics. But now it saw something it didn't understand. It saw two souls forged by fire, standing side by side, not out of duty, but out of choice.